Well, it finally happened. The JFK files have been released to the public. Now, if we could just get the Epstein files, um, but we'll keep this, you know, on topic. So the JFK files are out. I'm not going to sit here and claim that I've read them all because I haven't, because there's a lot of them, and we're just going to look at some highlights. Shout out to the Gateway Pundit for shout out to Jim Hoft for compiling this nice little list of stuff. Um, like I said in the thumbnail, surely not as exciting as you'd think. It pretty much, at least the stuff that I've seen and from what I've seen, other people, have pulled out. It just seems like the Oswald did it, and he was radical. It was like Oswald did it. He seems to have genuinely acted alone. There doesn't seem to be any Mossad connection, despite what people want there to be. There's no smoking gun, as it were. There's a lot of stuff in there to imply that the CIA was involved in some way. That they had been monitoring Oswald for so long, and they did nothing to stop him. Almost like kind of like Pearl Harbor and 9/11. We knew it was going to happen, but we let it happen. Or the CIA, I should say, let it happen. Or at least that's my takeaway from it. But like I said, shout out to the Gateway Pundit. We've got some we got some highlights. Here are some of the biggest bombshells uncovered by internet sleuths in the newly released JFK files. I just want to take the time once again to thank the God Emperor, Donald J. Trump, for keeping another one of his campaign promises. He said the JFK files would come out unredacted, and that seems to be the case. So, shout out to DJT. President Donald Trump ordered the release of approximately 1,123 PDF files of previously classified documents related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, fulfilling a long-standing promise to declassify all remaining records. These files, part of the President John F. Kennedy assassination record collection, are accessible online at the National Archives, JFK Release 2025. That's the link to it. Or in person at the National Archive at College Park in Maryland. Internet sleuths and researchers have been combing through these files, uncovering what they believe are significant revelations. Below are some highlights found online, some of which were previously known. See, that's the reason why I said it's not very exciting, because a lot of this stuff is stuff that we kind of already knew. We just now have confirmation of it. This was interesting. I thought this first one. Shout out to Ryan Fournier, I guess is how you'd say that. Yeah, it turns out Lee Harvey Oswald was considered a poor shot. Um, which might be Ray. Sorry, I'm just going to read from the top. Nikonov personally reviewed KGB files to determine if Lee. Oh, yeah, that's another thing. The KGB also seems to be highly involved. It seems to be that the KGB was the one who set Oswald in motion. And again, the CIA knew what was happening and allowed it to happen. Anyway, Nikonov personally reviewed KGB files to determine if Lee Harvey Oswald had been a KGB agent. He reviewed 5 thick volumes of files on Oswald. Nikonov is now confident that Oswald was at no time an agent controlled by the KGB. Yeah, I don't believe that part. From the description of Oswald in the files, he doubted that anyone could control Oswald, but noted that the KGB watched him closely and constantly while he was in the USSR. He committed that Oswald had a stormy relationship with his Soviet wife, who wrote him incessantly. The file also reflected that Oswald was a poor shot when he tried target firing in the USSR. But again, see, this is the interesting thing, is that the JFK files essentially affirm that Oswald was the one that made the shot. Oswald did the shot. Oswald did the kill. But the files also claim that he was a bad shot. So the JFK files reveal Lee Harvey Oswald was a spy tried twice to obtain USSR visas from Mexico City. So up here it says that someone in the government said no, he's not a part of the KGB. He's not a KGB agent. Just because he wasn't a KGB agent doesn't mean he wasn't a Russian asset. This JFK file shows that Lee Harvey Oswald was a spy, attempted to get a visa into the USSR from Mexico City twice. Now, see, we already knew about that. We already knew about him going to Mexico City to speak with a KGB agent down there. He was considered the most effective and dangerous intelligence officer in Mexico by Russian consular officer. Regarding your letter 6705 of May 10th, 1982, our records indicate that Valery Vladimirovich Kostakov traveled to Mexico, France, Spain, the U.S., and Cuba during the period of 1959 to 61. In 61, he was assigned permanently to Mexico City as a consular officer and served there until August 1965. He was variously described as a translator, vice consul, and attache. During this tour, he attempted to cultivate a U.S. government employee assigned to our embassy in Mexico City. In September, October of 1963, Lee Harvey Oswald approached the Soviet embassy in Mexico City in an attempt to get a visa allowing him to return to the USSR. Kostakov, as a consular officer, handled this visa request. We have no information which indicates any relationship between these individuals other than for the purpose of Oswald making his visa request. Kostakov returned to Mexico City for his second tour of duty in July 68. During this tour, he was again assigned to the consular section and was a second secretary. It appeared that he was tasked with following the activities of the Central American Communist parties and left wing groups. And he met often with members of these groups, reportedly providing them with funds and technical guidance. In July, August of 1969, Kostakov made an unusual TDY trip to Moscow lasting 3 weeks. His family remained in Mexico. In July 1970, he made a 4-day trip to Havana. Kostakov's tour in Mexico ended unexpectedly in September 71. Our information indicated that he was not due to leave for another 3 or 4 months, and at the time of his departure, there was some speculation that the suddenness of his departure was due to the fact that he was known to Leyland. Lyland. I don't know how you would pronounce that. Well, in Mexico, he was considered by some to be the most effective and dangerous intelligence officer in Mexico. He has been described as being without morals, education, and manners. So he was a stupid asshole. Shortly after his arrival in Mexico in 1968, he was arrested in front of a house of prostitution after becoming involved in a fist fight with some locals. It appears this incident did not affect his position in Mexico City, despite the fact that it received a good deal of press coverage. We're aware that only Kostakov arrived in Beirut in June 78. We are unable to confirm his presence there now. Although our file indicates that Kostakov may have been a member of Department 13, um, we have been unable to confirm this. Also, to the best of our knowledge, the KGB has not engaged in such executive action since 1959. Moving on, the CIA memo from September 24th, 1963 confirms Lee Harvey Oswald was under surveillance by CIA 59 days before the JFK assassination. See, this is what I'm saying. It seems to be that Oswald, while he was in Russia, became a KGB asset. The CIA knew about this, monitored him while he did this, while he prepared to pull off the assassination, and the CIA just put their hands up and said, "Nah, dog, not doing it. We're not going to do anything about this because, JFK is trying to cut our budget. He wants to destroy the CIA, and we need to get him out of the way." Like I said, that's what I at this point that's what I think. It was definitely Lee Harvey Oswald at this point. Like, second gunman, whatever. I mean, if Liar were here, he'd probably say that he still believes that the CIA, that that someone took another shot from another direction. It's possible, but right now, at least officially, the government stance is Lee Harvey Oswald was the killer that day and acted alone. But yeah, taken in, became a KGB asset, not an official KGB agent, just an asset. The CIA knew it was happening and allowed it to happen because they wanted JFK out of the way. What was it? This CIA memo from September 24, 1963 shows Lee Harvey Oswald was actively being monitored by the CIA at least 59 days before the JFK was assassinated. Oswald made contact with the Soviet embassy in Mexico where he inquired about travel to the USSR. Yeah, we already covered that, but let's click on this. See, a lot of this stuff, the fact that a lot of it is scans and you can barely read the shit. At 0900 this morning, I talked with Frank Freiberg, recently returned COS in Helsinki of the Warren Commission inquiry concerning the timetable of Oswald's stay in Finland in October 1959, including his contact with the Soviet consular there, or consulate, not consular, consulate there. Like I said, a lot of this shit's really hard to read. Uh, yeah, no, see, let's just move on because I'm not going to sit here and butcher this shit. Because like I said, it's really, really hard to read. Note again, we already knew about the contact with the Mexico embassy because of this file up here. Gary Underhill claimed the CIA was responsible for JFK's assassination. He was then later found dead in what was ruled as a suicide because that's the CIA's calling card. Again, why I think the CIA was involved. A day after JFK was assassinated, Gary Underhill claimed that the CIA was responsible. Less than 6 months later, Gary was found shot to death in his apartment. It was ruled a suicide. Shocker. Yeah, John Garrett Underhill Jr., Samuel George Cummings, and in into Romco, whatever. Ramparts of June, 1967, Volume 5, Number 12, pages 28 through 29, contains the following passage about the subjects. The day after the assassination, Gary Underhill left Washington in a hurry. Late in the evening, he showed up at the home of a friend in New Jersey. He was very agitated. A small clique within the CIA was responsible for the assassination, he confided, and he was afraid for his life and probably would have to leave the country. Less than 6 months later, Underhill was found shot to death in his Washington apartment. The coroner ruled it a suicide. J. Garrett Underhill had been an intelligence agent during World War II and was a recognized authority on limited warfare and small arms. A researcher and writer on military affairs, he was on a first name basis with many of the top brass in the Pentagon. He was also on intimate terms with a number of high ranking CIA officials. He was one of the agency's unpeople who performed special assignments. At one time, he had been a friend of Samuel Cummings of Interim Romco, whatever. I don't know how to fucking say that. The arms broker that numbers among its customers the CIA and, ironically, Klein's Sporting Goods of Chicago, from where the mail order Garsano allegedly was purchased by Oswald. I believe the Garsano was the rifle he used. A man named Sergei Zornino allegedly had knowledge that Oswald would be killed after assassinating Kennedy, and that Martin Luther King Jr. would also be assassinated. He also knew in advance that Kennedy would be killed in Dallas. Now that's interesting. Let's just read the highlighted part, shall we? I said Mr. Lee H. Oswald will be killed after killing Kennedy. I guess it was a typo. I said I will take the truth drug to tell the truth. Director, tell us who else get killed in this country. I said, as I heard, that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. will be killed. Who will kill Dr. King Jr., Negro leader? I said a man who is in prison at this time. Mr. James Earl Ray was in prison at the time. Yes. Director asked where assassination will happen. I said in Dallas, Texas. Director said if someone gave this information here, I would expel the man. Director did call on FBI agents after FBI used anesthesia gas to freeze me, to drug me, to keep amnesia. I told Director Department of State that Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald have a weapon. Go see him. Director told me you too can have a weapon. So what if Oswald got weapon? This is this was retyped from a handwritten letter. It seems. Hmm. Interesting. Now this is one of the things that's going to really set off the Jew brain, the JQ people, is that Jack Ruby claims that the reason why he killed Lee Harvey Oswald was because of the fact that he's Jewish. Jack Ruby's Jewish, not Lee Harvey Oswald. Yes, his real name is Jack Rubenstein. Us Jews have guts, and I plan to kill this assassin, this rat, 3 times. Uh, Here, let me just start from the top. What did he say when Mr. Sorrells asked him about carrying a gun? Answer: he didn't ask him that. Question: did it ask him at any time? Answer: no, sir, not in my presence. Question: even after he was supposed to say, "Us Jews have guts," and I plan supposed to say. Interesting. Us Jews have guts, and I plan to kill this assassin, this rat, 3 times. And a gun was found on him. Neither of you nor Mr. Sorrells asked him why he carried a gun. Answer: no, sir. Question: don't you think that's rather credulous? Withdraw. Are you trained in investigations and interrogations? This was part of a deposition, so people could object, which is why he had to say withdrawal, I suppose. So wait, Jack Ruby was supposed to say this? Like he was coached to say this? Hmm. Uh, where was I? Don't you think that's credulous withdrawal? Are you trained in investigations and interrogations? Answer: yes, sir. I would say I was. Question: all right. And a gun was found on this man? Answer: I haven't even seen a gun at the time. I knew that. Question: you knew he had a gun? Answer: yes, sir. I knew he had shot Oswald. Question: you knew he shot Oswald. How long did Sorrells talk to him? Answer: 4 or 5 times. Question: is that all he talked to him? Answer: yes, sir. In my presence? Yes, sir. Question: just 4 or 5 minutes in your presence? Answer: yes, sir. Question: you just happened to go in there and in 4 or 5 minutes in your presence, and he said something about being a Jew and planning to shoot him for 3 days or 2 days? Answer: that was his closing sentence. And he said, and I guess I want the world to know that Jews have guts. So interesting. This isn't what we don't know that Jack Ruby actually said this. Where another this is the FBI or the CIA one. I reckon this is the FBI file, but this is the FBI asking a guy what Lee or what Jack Ruby had said and him relaying that information. So in court, this is what we call hearsay, I believe. Let me see here. All right, a question. All right, tell us what you said and what he said. Answer: I started the introductions. I said, Mr. I said, Jack, this is Mr. Sorrells, and he's with, and about that time, Jack broke in and said, I know him. He's with the FBI. Mr. Sorrells corrected him and said, no, I'm not with the FBI. I'm with the Secret Service. Yeah, I'm not going to read the rest of that, but yeah. Nutty stuff. Man, this is a much bigger list of bombshell stuff than I earlier today when I first pulled this up. This is a bunch of shit. Well, this is turning into a long video. Yeah, mere hours after Jack Ruby shot and killed Lee Harvey Oswald, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover urgently called for a swift public report to prevent conspiracy theories from gaining traction. Okay. See, this is what's padding out the time, is like I can't just click on the image, you know? Attached here too is our report on CIA radio broadcasting as a Cold War weapon. It is grouped into the following sections. Section 1, page 1, deals with radio as a medium in the Cold War. Wait a minute. Just hours after Jack Ruby killed Lee Harvey Oswald, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover demanded a quick public report to stop conspiracy theories from spreading. Hoover wrote that there is nothing further on the Oswald case except that he's dead, and he wanted to ensure the public believed Oswald acted alone. The memo also shows the FBI was frustrated. Well, according to all the JFK files, Oswald did act alone, unless you count the KGB people he talked to as, but as far as we know, he did act alone that day. The memo also shows the FBI was frustrated that Oswald's murder left them without a chance to get more answers. I mean, that's fair. Section 5, page 10, recommendations for a body of principles to govern overall CIA policy. See, I'm sitting here reading this, and I don't see anything on Hoover actually saying that. It's like this is just like no, I mean it's just a report on the CIA radio broadcasting as psychological warfare from 1953. This is what the fuck? This isn't even this. This file that they're showing is 10 years before the assassination even happened. If like Hoover wrote something, why? See, this is just a picture of Japanese people. CIA files. The CIA monitors Japan's Bund Bayren. I don't know what that means for Vietnam ties. Declassified documents reveal the CIA tracked Bayren Japan's Peace for Vietnam Committee, formed in 1965 as an anti-American, anti-Vietnam War group, despite being presented as independent intellectuals. I don't really care about that. Lee Harvey Oswald was allegedly under the direction of KGB officer Kostikov, reportedly linked to Department Fleet, which we already covered that. Okay. J. Edgar Hoover was asked whether Lee Harvey Oswald was an FBI agent and if there was a conspiracy to assassinate JFK. Okay, well, we already knew that, like, they asked Hoover all this stuff. Like, well, I did say earlier that a lot of this stuff we already knew. A letter addressed to then Senator Joe Biden accused him of being a traitor. The letter was signed by JFK Jr., not JFK, John F. Kennedy Jr. Still, it is interesting that they called Joe Biden a traitor. Accompanying handwritten, hand-printed letter dated 8/26/64. Or wait, does that say? Oh, 94. 94. Beginning, Dear Senator Biden, you are a traitor, and bearing the signature of John F. Kennedy Jr. Yep. The CIA was intercepting U.S. Postal Service mail sent to the USSR and had 300 CIA members indexing 250,000 names. Now that's interesting, but also not shocking because, like, this idea that, like, oh, the CIA's reading, all of our text messages. I mean, they've always been reading our communications, or at least anything we send internationally. And if you didn't believe they were doing that, you're retarded. An interview with FBI Assistant Director Alan Belmont on May 6, 1964 includes questions about Ruby and Oswald's connections on page 27, but many pages are missing, with the interview supposedly extending to page 473. Let me see here. No, I can't open image in new tab. Hey, that should be much quicker. Mr. Cloy, Mr. McCloy, have you come to any conclusion or opinion in regards to Ruby and his connections to Oswald, if any? Mr. Belmont, the reports, of course, speak for themselves. But in summation, we did not come up with anything of a solid nature. That is, anything that would stand up to indicate that there was any association between Ruby and Oswald. We had numerous allegations which we ran out extensively and carefully, but there was nothing, no information that would stand up to show there was an association between them. Mr. McCoy, maybe this is in the record, but do you, by any reason of your very close association with this investigation, I venture to ask this question, do you, from your knowledge of the investigation, that just kind of cuts off, doesn't really, carry on. But again, they said this was kind of cut off. A man claiming to be a Polish driver for a Russian vehicle warning of Soviet plans to pay someone in the U.S. to assassinate the president. That's interesting. And I can barely read that shit. Cable details telephone conversation, including verbatim that remarks possible uh, connection Soviet government with assassination. Cable details telephone call on October 15th, 1962. Cable planes any. Jesus, I cannot read that. Holy shit. Any something or liaison contact with Polish driver and results of such contact. Note something 5 assigns responsibility this activity to I can't read that. All aspects of assassination have something uh, something priority. I can't fucking read that shit. CIA censored assassination of Cambodian leader. A secret 1963 CIA report reveals discussions about using Cambodian dissident Song Gok Thon in a political campaign against Prince. Yeah, what does this have to do with? Yes, we know the CIA likes to fuck with other countries. What does this have to do with JFK? A lot of this stuff wasn't in this article earlier today. Whenever I tagged, got this web page up before I went to work, before I went to my IRL job. Okay, yes, we knew they were spying on Cuba because we know that they were lying to JFK about operations in Cuba, and we knew all that. So I'm not even going to bother with that. A CIA memo reveals that agency officers claimed they couldn't recall Watergate burglar James McCord's involvement in Cuban operations. Watergate happened after Kennedy, didn't it? So, why does this have anything to do with JFK? Probably because it was connected to Cuba, maybe. And I mean, I suppose it just goes to establishing how fucked the CIA is. Let me see here. Vietnamese general wanted to overthrow the president. 1962 CIA documents show that General Tran Van Lee, or Lai, talked about removing South Vietnam's leader, President Diem, because he feared the country would fall into the hands of the communists. Lee said a takeover. Yeah, okay. JFK Files reveals CIA's extensive global operations, listing 34 secret field bases across Africa, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. Again, like it's good to have confirmation of these things, but we already knew. No, we already knew the CIA was fucking around all over the world in places they had no business being. JFK Files. Oswald reportedly offered to do anything for Cuba. An intelligence report states that Lee Harvey Oswald told members of a pro-Castro group he was willing to do anything for the Cuban cause. The document describes how Oswald aggressively pushed. Let's just look at the open image in new tab. Meeting of the DCI with PBIAB Friday, December 28th, 0300 hours. Okay, so again, this image doesn't actually show any of that. It's just like anti-Castro activities, clandestine operations. It doesn't see. Okay, I'm starting to have a problem here where I'm noticing people will post something and they'll say, "Oh, JFK files this doc," and then they post a doc. Something crazy happened. Then they post a document. The document doesn't actually talk about what they said it did, or it kind of like tangentially, like barely mentions it a little bit, and then they extrapolate all this extra information from the shit. Okay, now this is a big one, and we knew about this, but JFK sought to dismantle the CIA's independent authority. Oh, okay, so this is an entire thread, which this video is already over 30 minutes long, so I'm not going to go into it. Because again, we already knew that JFK wanted to dismantle the CIA. Oh, wow, the whole thread is here. That's cool. Let's read this highlighted section. God damn, dude. Can't see shit. In the highlighted section, CIA operations have not been held effectively subordinate to U.S. foreign policy. In short, no one knows how many potential problems for U.S. foreign policy and how much potential friction with friendly states are being created at this moment by CIA's clandestine intelligence operations. No, I don't even have to click on that. I can actually read it from this page. In practice, however, the CIA has often been able to seize the initiative in ways which reduce states' role almost to that of a rubber stamp. The concept of contingency planning has legitimized the concrete preparation of operations still presumably in a hypothetical stage. People did not uh, at first notice that contingency planning, when carried to the stage of recruitment and training of personnel, creates a vested interest which often transforms uh, contingencies into apparent necessities. Thus, if a group is assembled and revved up on a contingency basis, then the failure to carry the project through, uh, if it's argued, will invite the disappointment and alienation of that group. Yeah, again, we already knew all that. Like the CIA, is futzing about, doing bad things. Yeah, this. Yeah, see, but now, like I said, there's nothing. Like I said, there really was nothing groundbreaking in any of this, and there's still thousands of documents that aren't shown here. But people are still making a lot of conjecture, and then of course if you go on X, you'll see people just because they're literally just making shit up. They're just posting. They'll post a page, like, and they'll say that this page confirms this idea that they had, and then you actually read it, and it either doesn't say anything at all, or it doesn't prove anything. That's the problem. There's no smoking gun in any of the stuff that I've seen and the stuff that most people see. There's nothing. Nothing. The only thing that we know for certain was that Lee Harvey Oswald did it, that he was most likely a KGB asset, that the CIA was aware of his plans, his connections to the KGB, and did nothing to stop him. So yeah, if anybody tries to tell you that the JFK files definitively proves that it was the mafia. The mafia, as far as I can find, doesn't even come up anywhere in this stuff. And I used to be a mafia guy. I used to think that it was the mafia that did it. The Italian mafia, not the Jewish mafia, you fucking retards. Um, but I firmly believe that it was the mafia that did it. That was, because of, the them helping him get elected and then him turning on them and letting making his brother attorney general, and his brother goes after them, and the whole, that was the one that I subscribed to, but yeah, that doesn't seem to be the case. But yeah, no, there's a lot of people throwing it around saying that the JFK files confirmed that Israel did it. No, it doesn't confirm anything like that. There's a lot of stuff in it about JFK's issues with some of the tensions that were going on between himself and Israel at the time. But again, nothing that definitively proves anything. Everybody already knew that JFK didn't want Israel to get new nuclear weapons. Everybody already knew that JFK wanted AZC to register as a foreign lobbying group. Everybody already knew that. Like, that's not new information. It also doesn't prove that the Israelis had him killed. And there's nothing in the JFK files that indicates the Israelis did it or that the mafia did it. Or that the bullet was magic, or any of the nutty stuff that you've heard over the years. It seems to be Oswald did it, KGB's involvement, CIA let it happen. Or at least that's my takeaway so far. But anyway, disagree with me. Engage. We need to build some engagement. Follow the links, like the video, subscribe everywhere. Follow, or not, whatever. Follow me everywhere. Follow me on X. Blah 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 blah. Bones. Throw them at me.